So how am I going to be using this example of arrays for our NPC character? Now I'm going to put in something that should be a lot of fun. I'm going to introduce some waypoints. Okay, so I've already given it away. Our NPC is going to have a new behaviour type. Instead of free roaming attack, I'm going to make a type that is a patrol attack. It's going to patrol between some waypoints, and then if the player or if the target comes within a certain range, I think I'll have within the maximum range, he will turn from patrolling to attacking. That's what I'm going to be doing with that. Alright, let's look at these waypoints. So, that's what all the array theory, the built-in array theory was about. Creating an array that will store our waypoints. Now in the example, I used integers. Now we're going to be storing transforms. Let's create a public variable that we can then apply the values in the inspector. So we're not going to be coding in any values for our array or setting the size anywhere in here. Everything's going to be done in the inspector. But I couldn't just do that without showing you arrays a bit more in depth. Anyway, let's get into it. Waypoints. And this will be an array of transforms. So we typecast it. That's just for a single transform. We want an array of transforms. So there's our square brackets. Save that out. Go to the inspector. Now we can see we have the variable set up for our array. When we set the size, then we get the elements, all each different position. And we look at each position wants a transform, because waypoints array is declared as a transform array. Okay? Now, for waypoints, I'm going to use physical game objects because they're just easier to see, and then we can manipulate them. We can move them around to where we want, so they're totally modifiable that way. Now, for this part, I'm actually also going to use something I've never really used before, but I should have been using for a long time. Okay, so what are we going to be looking at? We're going to be looking at Gizmos. Okay, got all these Gizmos. Now for waypoints, suppose they're a point, so let's use a sphere as an example. So there's a whole function for using gizmos. And we're pretty much going to be using that. Let's create a script that we can put on our waypoints so that we can see them as gizmos. Create JavaScript. Our waypoint gizmo script. So let's make the script. And I'm going to absolutely copy out all of the Unity scripting references out. Don't need any other functions. All this is for in the editor. I'm going to format it how I like it. And I guess we'll use yellow spheres. Let's just expand that. Let's look at the parameters here. So we're obviously setting a color. So we've been through color in other stuff. So we have color. We can assign a color directly by a name. And it will set the different values for the channels of that color based on what we give it here. So we can just use any of these for our color. What's the next thing? We're looking at draw sphere, and it looks like we're setting a position and we have a value. What's that about? Okay, so it's a sphere, so we're setting the center of the sphere and then just giving the sphere a radius. Okay, that's pretty simple. We can even leave it at that. So we're setting it at the position of, this will be attached to the waypoint. So we'll set the position of the gizmo sphere at the position of the waypoint, and we'll give it a radius of 1. That was radius, yeah. Okay, so that's going to make it too wide actually. So let's make it 0.5. So I want a diameter of 1. Okay, so there's our waypoint gizmo script. Now let's make some waypoints and see if this is working. So for waypoints, I'm going to use empty game objects. Alright. Now I'm using empty game objects as a transform, because if you see, that's what we're using our target as. So we already have our script in place for heading towards a target. So we can calculate our directional vector already using a transform and our transform. So we're just going to use a waypoint transform and our transform to get a directional vector. That's all we're doing. So let's create an empty game object. Zero it out. Let's call this waypoint. Okay, and we'll give it our waypoint gizmo script. Can we see anything immediately happening there in the inspector? I think we can. If I put that next to the player, you can't see anything happening. If I zoom in on the waypoint, there it is. There is our gizmo. It's a sphere with a radius of 0.5. And it's set at the position of our waypoint. I'll set the Y to 0, and there it is on the ground. There is the waypoint. Fantastic. So, also red, I think you can see them here. Yep, if you want to see it in your game view, then you just simply select the gizmos tab there. Okay, so we can also see it in our scene view if we want, in our game view. Let's create a couple of waypoints because we want to move in between the two. Okay, so the gizmos are only showing up when they're selected. I don't think that was the case. Draw gizmo selected, so we need to look more at these gizmos. On gizmos, draw or selected. Okay, so we only want on draw gizmos. So I want to see them whether the object is selected or not. This is only when the object is selected. And this one, let's edit it first and comment that one out. Show gizmo all the time. Now let's see if that's worked for us. So it compiles out. Then there's our gizmos, both of them. Neither of them are selected. And we can see both of them. Right now we can start mucking around, putting our waypoints around, seeing what we can do with them. So let's just get in patrolling between those 2 points. Okay, we've got a long way to go here. So waypoints. As I said, you can set the size here, and then drag and drop the waypoints in to the array there. Okay, we'll show you a quicker way. Okay, so we have a size of 0 on our array. You can simply drag and drop this straight onto that variable. There we go. So which one was that? That's when we need to start naming them. Waypoint 1. Back to our NPC. We already have waypoint 1. As I said, you can simply drag and drop this into the variable. And there we have our size of 2 and our 2 values in our waypoint array of transforms. Let's save that scene before I go too far. So we have 2 waypoints. What can we do with them?